The nurse said, "Your emergency contact is a man named Daniel Reeves." The old man looked at the ceiling. "That's my son," he said. "He's been paying your bills," the nurse said, "since 2021, every month. He listed himself as anonymous donor, but the name is on the account." The old man said nothing. "Sir?" The nurse's voice was careful. "Did you know?" He did not answer. He was looking at the ceiling and thinking about a boy who was 7 years old the last time he had seen him clearly. Not the last time he had seen him. There had been a custody hearing, a school graduation he had attended from the parking lot, a wedding invitation he had not responded to. But the last time he had seen him clearly, the way you see someone when you are still the person they believe you to be. 7 years old, standing in the doorway of an apartment that was too small, holding a toy truck with a broken wheel that he had been carrying since the morning his father packed a bag. "Will you come back?" the boy had said. He had said, "Of course." He had not come back. That had been 31 years ago. "Call him," the old man said. "He's already here," the nurse said. "He's been in the waiting room for 2 hours." Subscribe right now, because the man who walks through that door spent 3 years paying for the life of the father who left him. Without a word, without a condition. And when his father finally asks him why, the answer is going to be the 3 words that will stay with you for the rest of the week. His name was Thomas Reeves. He was 42 years old. He worked in civil engineering, bridge design, the specific work of calculating how much weight a structure could hold before it failed. He had chosen this deliberately, though he did not think about this often. He was good at it. He was good at understanding stress points. He had a wife named Sarah, a daughter named Iris who was 9 and had his mother's eyes, a house in a neighborhood that was not expensive but was good. The kind of neighborhood where people knew each other's names, where kids rode bikes in the street until the lights came on. He had built a life that was entirely his own. This had required, in the early years, a specific and deliberate effort. Not because he was angry. He had been angry, at 17, at 22, at 28, the anger arriving in waves without warning, in the middle of ordinary things, while he was driving, or eating, or watching his daughter sleep. He had learned to recognize the waves and let them pass. Not because he was sad. He had been sad too. His mother had raised him alone on a teacher's salary, and she had been enough, more than enough. She had been extraordinary. But there was a specific kind of sadness that arrived on Father's Day, and at school events, and at his wedding, when he looked at the seat that was empty and thought, he knew about the wedding. He was sent an invitation. He had built his life not despite the anger and the sadness, but alongside them, the way you built a bridge alongside a river, accounting for the current, respecting the force of it, designing the structure to hold. He had not expected, at 39 years old, to receive a phone call from a hospital in a city he had left at age 7. The night before he left, Iris had come to find him in the kitchen. It was late. She was supposed to be asleep. She appeared in the doorway in her pajamas with the specific alertness of a child who had been lying in the dark thinking about something. "Dad," she said. "You should be asleep," he said. "I know," she said. She came in and sat at the kitchen table. "I was thinking about the man you're going to see." He sat across from her. "What were you thinking?" he said. "I was thinking it must be hard," she said, "to be sick and not have anyone come." She paused. "Even if it was your fault they weren't coming." Thomas looked at his daughter. "Why especially then?" he said. She thought about it. "Because then you know why," she said. "If you're sick and alone and you don't know why, you can think maybe they're coming. But if you know why," she paused, "you know they're not coming. Because you made it that way." She looked at Thomas. "That's the worst kind of alone." He sat with this. "He might not deserve to have someone come," Thomas said, honestly, giving her the real version. "I know," she said, "but that's different from whether someone should come." She looked at him with the directness she brought to everything. Deserving and should aren't the same thing. 9 years old. No, Thomas said, they're not. She seemed satisfied. Okay, she said, I'm going to sleep. She got up. At the door, she turned. Dad, she said. Yes? Come back, she said. Always, he said. She went to sleep. He sat at the kitchen table for a long time. Deserving and should aren't the same thing. He had been trying to figure out whether his father deserved what Thomas had done. 3 years of payments, the drive, the 3 days. He had been asking the wrong question. The question was not what his father deserved. The question was who Thomas wanted to be. He wanted to be someone who showed up, not because the person deserved it, because he did. The call had come on a Tuesday. He had been at his desk, reviewing load calculations for a pedestrian overpass, when his cell phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer. He answered. A social worker named Patricia. His father, Edward Reeves, had been admitted with cardiac complications. There was no insurance. The account listed no next of kin except a son, Thomas Reeves, at an address that was 15 years out of date. I haven't spoken to him in 20 years, Thomas said. Patricia said, I understand. I just needed to make contact. Is he going to survive? A pause. With treatment, probably. Without it, she stopped. It's expensive. Thomas sat at his desk. He thought about the boy in the doorway with the broken truck. He thought about his daughter Iris, who was 7 years old that year, who looked at him sometimes with the specific, total trust of a child who has never had reason to doubt that her father will be there. He thought, what does it cost a man to walk away from that? He did not ask this as a rhetorical question. He asked it as an engineer, as a man who measured things. What does it actually cost? What is the load on a person who makes that choice? What breaks in them, or what was already broken before? Can I ask something? He said. Of course, Patricia said. Does he know you called me? No, she said. You were the only contact on file. I called because I had to. Thomas was quiet. I'll take care of it, he said. He had not known, when he said it, that he meant financially. He had thought he meant he would make some calls, find some resource, handle the administrative problem. He was good at administrative problems. But he had called the billing department, and the number had been large. And he had sat with it for a day, and then he had called back and given his card number and asked to be listed as anonymous. He had not told Sarah immediately. When he told her, 2 weeks later, she had looked at him for a long time. Why? She said. Not accusatory, genuinely asking. I don't know yet, he said. She had looked at him a while longer. Okay, she said. That was Sarah. She had always understood that some things needed to be lived toward rather than decided in advance. He had been paying every month for 3 years. He had not contacted his father. He had received quarterly updates from Patricia. Condition improving, stable, mobile again, cardiac rehab. And he had filed them and kept paying and not contacted his father. He had told himself he was still deciding. He had been deciding for 3 years. Then Patricia called again 2 weeks ago. He's back in, she said. It's more serious this time. He's asking questions about who's been paying. She paused. Thomas. He's not going to make it out of this one if the treatments stop. They won't stop, Thomas said. He wants to know who it is. Thomas was quiet. I think, Patricia said carefully, that you need to come. He told Sarah that night. They sat at the kitchen table after Iris was in bed. He told her the whole thing. The 3 years, the monthly payments, the quarterly reports, the fact that he had been deciding for 36 months and had not yet decided. Sarah listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, What are you afraid of? He thought about this honestly. That I'll go, he said, and it will be nothing. That he'll be just a sick old man in a hospital, and I'll feel nothing, and I'll realize I've been paying for 3 years for a story that only exists in my head. And? And that's worse, he said, than the anger, than the sadness. If there's nothing there, if he's just a stranger, then there was never anything to be angry about. And all those years of... He stopped. Of what? Sarah said. Of it mattering, he said. That he left. It mattered because he was my father, and fathers matter. But if I go, and he's just a sick old man, I don't know. He stopped again. Sarah reached across the table, put her hand over his. Go, she said. Whatever it is, it's real. You've been paying for his life for 3 years. That's not nothing. You don't do that for a stranger. I don't know why I did it, he said. Yes, you do, she said. You just haven't said it out loud yet. He looked at her. Go say it out loud, she said. Before he went to the hospital, he drove past the apartment. He had the address from Patricia. He did not know why he needed to see it first. He just did. It was a building on the east side of the city, 4 floors, a fire escape on the outside that needed paint. The kind of building that was not bad, but had never been good. The building of someone who had come down significantly and was still in the process of adjusting to that. He sat in the car outside. He thought about Gerard and Paul, about 20 years of partnership disassembled quietly from the inside. He thought about what his father had said. I confused duration with alignment. He thought about how his father had also confused something else. He had confused the permanence of family with the permanence of a business arrangement, had believed that children and wives were like long-term partners, that they would remain regardless of whether the relationship was tended. He had been wrong about that, too. Thomas sat outside the building. He thought, this is what it looks like. Not the dramatic version, not the villain, not the monster. Just a man in a building that needed paint, who had made a sequence of choices that each seemed manageable at the time and which had accumulated into this. He thought, I have spent 30 years being afraid this was in me. He thought, I have spent 30 years making sure it wasn't. He started the car. He drove to the hospital. The waiting room was beige, standard hospital waiting room, chairs that were designed to be cleanable rather than comfortable, a television in the corner running a news channel with the sound off, a vending machine with one item sold out. He had been sitting for 2 hours. He had driven 7 hours to get here. He had not told his father he was coming. He had told Patricia, who had said, he's been asking about the payments every day. I think he knows. Thomas sat in the beige room and thought about his daughter. Iris had asked him last week why he was going away for a few days. He had said, to see someone who's sick. Someone you know? She said. Someone I used to know, he said. Iris had considered this. Are you friends? He had thought about how to answer this honestly and simply, which was the only way he knew how to answer Iris. No, he said, but he doesn't have anyone else. Iris had nodded. She had her mother's quality of acceptance, the ability to take a complicated answer and find the simple thing in it. That's why you're going, she said. Yes, he said. Okay, she said. She had gone back to her drawing. He had sat with her answer for a week. That's why you're going. Not for resolution, not for closure, not for the apology he had imagined at 17, at 22, at 28, in different versions with different words. Not for the conversation, not even for the explanation. Because his father was sick and had no one else. It was that simple. It had always been that simple. He just hadn't been able to see it through everything else. The nurse appeared in the doorway. Mr. Reeves? He stood. He's awake, she said. He's been asking for you. Thomas followed her down the corridor. The room was at the end of the hall. He stood outside the door for a moment. Through the small window he could see a man in a hospital bed. Old Older than Thomas had imagined, though he had done the math, 71 years old. It was not a surprise. But age was different in person than in arithmetic. The man in the bed was thin in the specific way of someone who had been large and was now diminished. The frame still there, but the weight gone. An oxygen tube, monitors, hands on the blanket that Thomas recognized from a photograph his mother had kept, inexplicably, in a drawer. He pushed open the door. Edward Reeves looked up. He looked at his son. Thomas closed the door behind him. He stood at the end of the bed. They looked at each other for a long moment. 31 years. The man who had left and the boy who had been left. And between them, the accumulated weight of all the ordinary things that had happened in those years without each other. The school events, the graduations, the wedding, the birth of Iris, the Tuesday afternoons and the Sunday mornings. The accumulation of a life that had happened separately, entirely, without this man in it. "Thomas," his father said. His voice was older, weaker, but Thomas recognized it. The mind did not forget certain voices. "Dad," Thomas said. The word arrived without planning. He had not decided to say it. It came from somewhere below decision, from the place where 7-year-old boys kept words they had been holding for a long time. His father's face broke. Not dramatically, just something in it gave way. The specific expression of a man who has been carrying something for 31 years and has just heard evidence that it still exists. "You've been paying," his father said. "Yes. Since 2021. "Yes." His father looked at his hands. "Why?" Thomas pulled the chair to the side of the bed. He sat. This felt important, not standing over him, not at a distance, the same level. "I don't have a clean answer," Thomas said. "I've been trying to find one for 3 years." "Tell me the unclean one," his father said. Thomas looked at him. "Iris," he said. "My daughter. She's 9 now." He paused. "When she was 7, the year your hospital called, she looked at me one morning while I was making breakfast. Just looked at me. And I thought, what would it cost her? If I left? Not just the practical things. What would it cost her in the place where she keeps the things that matter?" His father said nothing. "I know what it cost me," Thomas said. "I've known my whole life what it cost me. And I thought—" He stopped. "I thought, he must have known too. Whatever he is, whatever happened, he must have known and he did it anyway. And I needed to understand what kind of person does that, not to forgive it, just to understand it." "And?" his father said. "I don't understand it yet," Thomas said. "But I understand that you're the only person who can tell me." His father looked at him. He was crying. Quietly, without drama, the way old men cried when they had very little performance left in them. "I was a coward," he said. "I know," Thomas said. "That's not enough of an explanation." "I know." "There isn't one," his father said. "I've tried to make one for 30 years. There isn't one that's enough. I was unhappy, and I was selfish, and I told myself your mother would be fine, and you would be fine, and I knew while I was telling myself this that it was a lie." He paused. "I knew when I saw you in the doorway." Thomas said nothing. "You had that truck," his father said. "The red one. The wheel was broken." Thomas went very still. "I thought about that truck for 30 years," his father said. "Every time I thought about leaving, about actually going back and—" He stopped. "The wheel was broken. You'd been carrying it all morning. I couldn't figure out why you were still carrying something that was broken." "I was waiting for you to fix it," Thomas said. His father closed his eyes. The room was quiet except for the monitors. "I know," his father said. Thomas stayed for 3 days. He had not planned to stay that long. He had packed for 1 night, maybe 2. He had told Sarah, "I'll call you when I know how it goes." She had said, Stay as long as you need." He stayed for 3 days. Not because the conversations were easy. They were not easy. There was no version of 31 years that collapsed into easy. What there was instead was something more like archaeology, the careful uncovering of layers, each one revealing something that required time before the next layer could be touched. His father talked about the years after he left. The new woman, her name was Diane, who had been, he said, the reason he told himself he was leaving, though he understood now that she had been the excuse rather than the reason. The reason had been simpler and worse. He had not known how to be the person his family needed, and he had not been willing to learn, and leaving had felt easier than failing visibly. Diane had left him 12 years ago. His business partners, men he had trusted for 2 decades, had systematically moved assets into structures that excluded him. He had not seen it until it was complete. He had spent 3 years in legal proceedings that cost more than he recovered. He had ended up here, this city, a small apartment, no insurance because he had let it lapse, believing he would restore it when the finances recovered, and the finances had not recovered. Thomas listened to all of it. He asked questions. Not the questions of a son, not the old burning questions of why and how could you and did you ever think about me? The questions of someone who wanted to understand a sequence of events. An engineer's questions. What happened? And then what? And then what? His father answered them. Patricia found him in the corridor on the second morning. She was a small woman, 50-something, with the specific quality of competence that social workers had when they had been doing the work long enough to stop being surprised by anything. "How is it going?" she said. "I don't know yet," Thomas said. "Better than I expected, harder than I expected." She nodded. "That's usually how it is." He looked at her. "Why did you call me?" he said. 3 years ago, you said I was the only contact on file, but you could have gone through other channels, found resources." She looked at him steadily. "I've been doing this work for 22 years, she said. "When I read a file, I know things about a person without being told them. Your father's file," she paused. "He had nothing. No insurance, no family, no support system. That happens a lot. But there was one thing in his file that was unusual." "What?" Thomas said. "He had updated his emergency contact 2 years before he was admitted," she said. "He put your name and number in the file himself. He drove to this hospital and filled out the paperwork." She looked at Thomas. "He wasn't our patient then. He had no reason to be here. He just came to update a form." Thomas was still. "He put you in as his emergency contact," she said, "on purpose. 2 years before he needed it." She paused. "That told me something. I don't know what it means to you, but it told me the contact wasn't accidental." Thomas stood in the corridor. 2 years before the hospital call. His father had driven here and filled out a form with Thomas's name and number, not knowing if Thomas would answer, not knowing if Thomas would come, just putting the name in case. "Thank you," Thomas said. "Go back in," Patricia said. "He's been watching the door." On the second day, Thomas said, "Did you ever try to come back?" His father was quiet for a long time. "Once," he said. "You were 12. I drove to the city. I found the apartment. Your mother had moved, but I found the new one." He paused. "I sat in the car outside for 2 hours. I watched a boy come out and get on a bike and ride down the street." He stopped. "I didn't know if it was you. He was too big. I remembered you small." "It was me," Thomas said. His father looked at him. "The red bike," Thomas said. "I had it from age 9 to 14. He paused. "I used to ride down to the park and back every evening." His father pressed his lips together. "I should have gotten out of the car," he said. "Yes," Thomas said. "I know." "Why didn't you?" His father looked at the window, the parking structure outside, the ordinary view of a hospital room. "Because you looked fine," he said. "You were riding a bike. You were fine." And I told myself, that getting out of the car would be for me, not for you. That I wanted to see you because I felt guilty, and that wasn't a good enough reason to disrupt a boy who was clearly fine. Thomas looked at him. "I wasn't fine," he said. "Not angry, just accurate." "I know," his father said. "I knew then, too. I just needed a reason to stay in the car." He paused. "I became very good at finding reasons." Thomas nodded. This was the thing he had needed to understand, not the excuse. He had known there would be no adequate excuse, but the mechanism, the specific way a person built a system of justifications that allowed them to keep choosing the easier thing. He had needed to see it from the inside to understand that it was not malice. It was cowardice, exactly as his father had said. The mundane and devastating cowardice of a man who kept finding reasons to stay in the car. Understanding it did not fix it, but it changed its shape. On the second afternoon, his father talked about the partners. Their names were Gerard and Paul. Men he had known for 20 years, since before Thomas was born. Men who had been at his wedding and his son's christening, and who had spent 2 decades building something with him, and then spent 3 years quietly disassembling it. It had not been dramatic. That was what his father said. That was the part that still surprised him. It had not been a sudden betrayal. It had been incremental. Small decisions, small redirections, the gradual movement of assets through structures that were technically legal and practically theft. By the time he understood what had happened, the understanding was the last thing they had left him. "Did you fight it?" Thomas said. "For 3 years," his father said, "in court. I spent more fighting than I recovered." He paused. "They were better prepared than I was. I think they had been preparing for a long time." Thomas thought about this. "What did you do wrong?" he said. His father looked at him. "In the business," Thomas said. "What did you miss?" His father was quiet. It was, Thomas thought, possibly the first time anyone had asked him this question that way. Not accusatorially, not sympathetically, but practically. "I trusted," his father said. "Completely. Without verification. I believed that 20 years of working together meant they wanted what I wanted." He paused. "I confused duration with alignment." Thomas wrote this down in his mind. He did not say, "You did the same thing with us, your family. You assumed that because we were there, we would continue to be there, without the work of maintenance, without the daily choices that keep a structure sound." He did not say it because his father's face already showed that he knew. Some things did not need to be said twice. On the third day, his father said, "I want to leave you everything." Thomas looked at him. "I have the apartment," his father said. "It's not worth much. Some books, a watch that was my father's." He paused. "It's not—" "I know it's not—" "Dad," Thomas said. His father stopped. "I know," Thomas said. "I've known for 3 years. Patricia told me what happened with your partners. I know what's left." He paused. "That's why I started paying. There was nothing left. You were in here alone with no insurance and no money, and I couldn't—" He stopped. His father was looking at him. "You couldn't what?" his father said. Thomas looked at the window. He had been trying to find the clean answer for 3 years. He had told Sarah he didn't have one. He had told himself he was still deciding. He had the answer. He had always had it. He had just not been ready to say it out loud. "I couldn't let you die wondering if anyone was coming," he said. His father made a sound, not a word, something underneath words. "I was angry at you for 30 years, Thomas said. "I'm probably still angry. I don't think that goes away completely, and I'm not trying to pretend it does." He looked at his father. "But you're my father, and you were here alone. And I have Iris, and I know what it means to have a child who needs you, and I know what it costs them when you're not there." He paused. "I didn't pay for you. I paid because I couldn't be the person who let it happen and did nothing. That's not forgiveness. It's just who I am." His father looked at him. "Your mother made you," he said. "I had nothing to do with who you are." "She made most of me," Thomas said, "but some of it I made myself." He paused. "In spite of you, and also because of you. Both." His father nodded slowly. "The watch," he said. "My father's watch. I want you to have it." "Okay," Thomas said. "Not as payment. I know it doesn't—" "I know," Thomas said. "I'll take it." His father reached to the bedside table. The watch was there, an old one, analog, the kind that needed winding. He held it out. Thomas took it. He turned it over. The back was engraved. "For Edward. Time is the one thing you cannot buy back." His grandfather's handwriting, he guessed. Someone had thought this was wisdom. He put it in his pocket. "Tell me about Iris," his father said. Thomas looked at him. "She sounds like someone I should know about," his father said. Not a request for permission, just a statement. The statement of a man who understood the extent of what he was asking and was asking anyway. Thomas thought about Iris, about the drawing she had been doing when he left, about the way she had said, "That's why you're going," the simple truth of it. He thought about what she would say if he told her there was a grandfather she had never met. He thought about the look on her face. He thought about the questions she would ask, which would be many and specific and entirely honest. He thought, she deserves the choice. "She's 9, Thomas said. "She likes drawing. She has opinions about everything, and she says them immediately, without the part where she decides if you want to hear them." He paused. "She asks hard questions." "What kind of questions?" his father said. "She asked me last week why I was coming here," Thomas said. "I said, to see someone who's sick who doesn't have anyone else." He paused. "She said, that's why you're going." His father was quiet. "She sounds like she's going to be remarkable," he said. "She already is," Thomas said. A silence. "Thomas," his father said. "Yes?" "I'm not going to ask you to forgive me. I know I don't have that right." He paused. "But I want to ask, if you're willing, if we could—" He stopped, started again. "I have whatever time I have. I don't know how much. And I would like to spend some of it not being someone you pay for anonymously." He looked at his son. "I would like to be someone you know." Thomas sat with this. He thought about the red truck with the broken wheel. He thought about the car outside the apartment when he was 12 and the man who had stayed inside it. He thought about Iris setting the table and always setting it for 4 even when no one was coming, because she said it looked more like a real family that way. He thought, what do I want? Not what was owed, not what was fair, not what 31 years of anger and sadness had been building toward. What did he actually want? "I'm going home tomorrow," he said. "I have a daughter who's waiting. I have a job. I have a life I built." He paused. "I'm going to tell Iris about you. What I tell her will be honest. I won't make it simpler than it is because she doesn't need things to be simpler than they are." He paused. "After that, it's up to her. If she wants to know you, I'll bring her. If she doesn't, I'll respect that." His father nodded. "And you?" he said. "What do you want?" Thomas looked at him. "I want to understand the rest of it," he said. "The parts you haven't told me yet. The whole thing, honestly. No version that makes you look better than you were." He paused. "I'm an engineer. I need to understand how structures fail, where the stress point was, what broke first." "That's going to take more than 3 days," his father said. I know, Thomas said. I'll come back. His father looked at him, the specific expression of a man receiving something he had not believed was still possible. Okay, he said. Thomas stood.
He's been paying your
I'll
bills
arrange
since
the payments to
2021, every
continue
month,
through the
anonymous.
hospital.
The name
he
on the
said,
account is
while you're
Daniel
in here.
Reeves.
Call it.
After, we'll figure out something else. You don't have to. I know, Thomas said. I'll do it anyway. He picked up his coat. He looked at his father. 71 years old, thin, the monitors, the oxygen tube, the watch that had passed from one Reeves to the next with a message about time that nobody had managed to follow. He was, Thomas thought, exactly what Sarah had said he would be. Not a monster, not a stranger. A person who had made choices that cost more than he had calculated, and who had been paying for it quietly for 30 years without the option of paying for it the way Thomas had paid, directly, with something concrete, with an account number and a monthly transfer that at least did something. His father could not fix the broken wheel, but he was still here. So was Thomas. That was not nothing. Get some sleep, Thomas said. I'll come by in the morning before I drive back. Thomas, his father said. He paused at the door. Thank you, his father said. Not for the money, for coming, for... He stopped. For getting out of the car. Thomas looked at him. I learned from a bad example, he said. He said it without cruelty. His father heard it without defense. Yes, his father said. You did. Thomas left. He called Sarah from the parking garage. She answered on the first ring. How was it? She said. He sat in the car, the same parking structure his father could see from his hospital window. He thought about that. Two men sitting in cars, looking up at windows, learning different things. Hard, he said. Real. He paused. He's not a monster. I think I needed him to be a monster. I know, Sarah said. He's just a man who stayed in the car too many times, Thomas said, and then ran out of chances to get out. Sarah was quiet. But you got out, she said. Yes, he said. Because of Iris, she said. Because of the 7-year-old on the bike. Both, he said. She breathed. Come home, she said. Tomorrow, he said. I'm going back in the morning to say goodbye. Okay, she said. Thomas? Yes? I want to tell you something, she said. I've been thinking about it for 3 years, since you started paying. I didn't say it then because I didn't want to influence the decision. Tell me now, he said. What you did, she said, paying for his life anonymously for 3 years without knowing if you'd ever speak to him? That's not normal. Most people couldn't do that. She paused. I need you to know that I see it. Whatever you think you were doing, whatever your reason was, I see what it is. It's the same thing you do with Iris, with me. You show up, quietly, without making it about whether you get anything back. He sat in the parking garage. It's what my mother did, he said. For 30 years. She just showed up. I know, Sarah said. You learned from a good example too. He thought about his mother, 66 years old now, retired, living 20 minutes from them, teaching Iris to garden on Sunday afternoons. He thought about the apartment that had been too small, the teacher's salary, the way she had never, in his entire childhood, said a single word against his father that was designed to make Thomas feel worse than he already felt. She had just shown up, every day, without making it about whether she got anything back. Tell Iris I'll be home tomorrow evening, he said. She knows, Sarah said.
She set your place at dinner already.
He sat with this. Of course she did, he said. He drove back to the hotel. In the morning, he went back to the hospital. His father was sitting up. Better, the nurses said. The numbers were moving in the right direction. Thomas brought coffee from the place across the street, 2 cups. They sat together in the morning light. His father told him more. The early years, before the marriage, who he had been at 20, at 25. The way he had met Thomas's mother, which was a story Thomas had never heard from this side, only his mother's version, and hearing it from his father's side was strange and clarifying in equal measure. Thomas listened. He asked questions. At 9:30 he stood up. "I have to drive," he said. His father nodded. "Come back," he said. Not a question, not a request exactly. "I will," Thomas said. He held out his hand. His father looked at it for a moment. Then he took it. The handshake of two men who were not yet what they were working toward, but were at least working toward it. The handshake of a beginning, which was not the same as a resolution, but was, Thomas had decided, enough to build on. He left. He called his mother that evening. She answered on the second ring. Her voice had the particular warmth of a woman who was always genuinely pleased to hear from her son, without performance, without the quality that some parents had of making even a phone call into a small transaction. "How did it go?" she said. He had told her 2 weeks ago that he was going. She had been quiet on the phone. Then she had said, "That's your decision to make." He had appreciated this, that she had not told him what to do, had not given him the version of it that was really about her. "He's sorry," Thomas said. "He said it and I believe it." His mother was quiet. "How does that feel?" she said. He thought about this honestly. "Strange," he said. "I've been angry for a long time. The sorry doesn't undo anything, but it changes the shape of it. Like it was a question and now it has an answer. Not a good answer, just an actual one." "Yes," his mother said. "That's how it is." "Were you angry?" he said. "All those years. You never—" "I was furious," she said simply. "For the first 4 years, I was furious. Then I decided I couldn't raise you inside my fury, that it wasn't fair to you." She paused. "So I put it somewhere else. I took it out sometimes when you were asleep, and then I put it back." Thomas sat with this. "You never said anything against him," he said. "I had nothing useful to say," she said. "The facts spoke for themselves. I didn't need to add to them." A pause. "Did you ask him about the truck?" He went still. "You knew I remembered the truck?" "You brought it up every birthday until you were 12, she said. "Then you stopped bringing it up, which meant you were still thinking about it." She paused. "Did you ask?" "He brought it up himself," Thomas said. "He remembered it. He said he thought about it for 30 years. His mother was quiet for a moment. "Good," she said finally. "Good that he carried it." Thomas looked out the window. "Mama," he said. "Yes?" "Thank you," he said, "for putting the fury somewhere else." She was quiet for a long time. "You were worth it," she said. "That was easy." He drove 7 hours back. He walked through his front door at 6:15. Iris was at the kitchen table drawing. She looked up. "You're back," she said. "I'm back," he said. She got up, crossed the room, hugged him with the complete physical commitment of a 9-year-old who had missed someone. He held on. "How was he?" she said into his shoulder. "Sad," Thomas said, "and sorry, and real." Iris leaned back, looked at his face with the direct assessment she brought to everything. "Is he going to get better?" she said. "I hope so," Thomas said. "Are you going to see him again?" "Yes," Thomas said. She looked at him. "Can I come sometime?" she said. "If he gets better, I want to ask him things." Thomas looked at his daughter, 9 years old. Her mother's eyes, her grandmother's patience, her own specific, fearless directness that had come from somewhere in the combination of everything she had been given and everything she had decided for herself. "I'll ask him," Thomas said. "He'll say yes," Iris said, with the certainty of a child who had already calculated this. He's going to want to meet me." "Why are you so sure?" Thomas said. She shrugged. "Because you went all the way there," she said, "and you paid for him for 3 years. He knows what that means." She looked at Thomas steadily. "It means he still has a son. People who have that want to keep it." She went back to her drawing. Thomas stood in the kitchen doorway. He thought about a broken red truck, about a parking lot and a bike, and a man who had stayed in the car, about the watch in his pocket with its message about time, about 3 years of anonymous payments and the clean answer he had been looking for. Iris had found it in 30 seconds. It means he still has a son. That was why. Not forgiveness, not resolution, not the repayment of a debt that had no currency. Just the fact of still being a son. Still being the person on the other side of something that had not yet ended because he had chosen, every month for 3 years, to not let it end. He thought about his mother. He would call her tonight. He thought about his father in a hospital bed, holding a watch that said, "Time is the one thing you cannot buy back." He thought, "That's true, but you can show up. You can always still show up." Sarah appeared in the kitchen doorway behind him. She looked at Iris' drawing. She looked at Thomas. "She already set 4 places," she said quietly. He looked at the table. 4 places. "She said we should start practicing," Sarah said. Thomas stood in his kitchen, in his house, in the life he had built entirely on his own, from a foundation that had been damaged before he was old enough to choose it, and he felt something he did not have a clean name for. Something like enough. Something like it continues. Something like the specific weight of a structure that has been tested and held. "Tell her to wash her hands," he said. "I'll start dinner." He went to the kitchen. He started dinner. Outside, the neighborhood was doing what it always did in the evenings, ordinary, loud in the specific way of families, the sound of a life that was real and present and entirely his. He had gotten out of the car. He was going to keep getting out. That was the whole story, and also the beginning. 2 months later, Thomas drove back. His father had been discharged. The apartment with the fire escape. Thomas had arranged ongoing support through Patricia, not anonymous this time. His name on the account, his phone number on the forms. He brought Iris. Sarah had asked her, one Sunday morning at breakfast, "There's someone we might visit, your dad's father. He hasn't been part of our family before. He made some choices a long time ago that weren't good. But he's trying now. Do you want to meet him?" Iris had considered this with her standard thoroughness. "Does he know about me?" she said. "Yes," Sarah said. "Your dad told him about you." "What did he say?" "He said you sound remarkable." Iris had thought about this. "Okay," she said. "I'll go. But I get to ask him things." "That's fair," Sarah said. In the car, 3 hours into the drive, Iris said, "What should I call him?" Thomas glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "What do you want to call him?" he said. She thought. "I'll ask him what he wants," she said. "That seems right, since we're just starting." Thomas looked at the road ahead. "That's exactly right," he said. When they arrived, his father was waiting at the door of the building. He looked better than he had in the hospital. Still thin, still old, still carrying the weight of the years in his face, but upright, alert. He saw Thomas first, then he saw Iris. Iris looked at him the way she looked at everything, directly, without hurry, taking inventory. "You're my grandfather," she said. His father looked at her. "Yes," he said. "I have questions," she said. His father almost smiled. "I imagine you do." "Not all today," she said generously. "We have time." She walked past him into the building, already looking around, already cataloging. His father watched her go. He looked at Thomas. "She has your mouth," he said. "The way she says things." Thomas thought about this. "My mother's," he said. "She always said exactly what she meant." His father nodded. They went inside. Iris had already found the bookshelf and had opinions about the organization. Some things, Thomas thought, did not require 30 years of working toward. Some things started on a Tuesday afternoon when a 9-year-old walked through a door and said, "I have questions." He came inside. He closed the door. The afternoon was ordinary and new at the same time, which was exactly what beginnings were. If this story reached something in you, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, is there someone in your life you've been sitting in the car outside of? Because Thomas drove 7 hours and walked through a door. And a 9-year-old set 4 places at the table before anyone had decided anything. Tell me what you would have done.